Okay, welcome, gentlemen. So, Dialpad, pioneer in the space in my eyes, and for a lot of reasons. But help us understand a little bit, kind of the journey of Dialpad, right? Very early adopter of AI, of course, right, and ongoing build, right, investing into it. But give us the idea of kind of where we started and where we're at today.
Yeah, I love that you say the pioneer. I repeated that to someone else earlier today and yesterday after I heard you say it. Pioneer of AI voice. 8+ years with AI, building our own platform, building our own AI, models and machine learning. Everything that we built from the ground up. So as you guys know, Craig, you mentioned Craig a couple of times, has been very innovative in the space with his creating, Google Voice and other platforms early days, and then creating Dialpad. So again, where AI is being tacked on and everybody's worried about their AI strategy now and they're tacking on to their applications that they're using. We've been building it and been innovative and been groundbreaking in the space for 8 years plus. So I think it makes us stand out just because we do have all of the minutes that we're capturing, everything that we're doing with AI. We're not pulling from ChatGPT or some other internet location or database. We're pulling from our own billions and billions of minutes that we've captured of voice communications, and then we're able to pull analytics and things off of that. So it's just really a strong play for us. It's not just everybody's saying AI, but when you really have been doing it for 8 years, it really makes it stand out. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Nothing else.
So to that point, we are where we are now, right? So let's talk about measurables and outcomes. I think that's one of the luxuries of AI, especially in your space, contact center as well as UCaaS, that there's a lot of measurable outcomes that we can see from customers adopting, bringing in different technologies and being able to use it. So where are you seeing? First of all, where's Dialpad winning a lot from a fit perspective, and then to follow up to that, what are some of the benefits and outcomes that these organizations are seeing when they are adopting the technology?
Yeah, the space that we're playing in has gone everywhere from SMB through mid-market up to smaller enterprise, but now we've even got Jordan's on our enterprise team, right? He's our lead engineer in this region for enterprise. That's 2,500 employees and up. So we've really done a good job in this last couple of years of moving up market, just to answer part of the question. So you're going to see us starting to get into some of those larger deals, those larger, we're going against the likes of Genesis and NICE on those contact center deals head to head, right? So we're seeing wins there. We're winning in certain verticals. I would say that we own the retail space. We own a couple of other ones, transportation, and we had some staffing folks here earlier. Staffing is really good for us. We actually have a staffing product that we're coming out with. So we're winning in certain verticals. But we're really differentiating and winning is when it's not just a voice play. So we probably don't do the best when it's just, do you need some dial tone? You really want somebody that wants to take advantage and harness the power of this AI, right? Or you'd be able to find some business outcomes. And you asked about business outcomes as well. What is the customer trying to do? Are they trying to increase revenues? Are they growing their company? Are they opening new offices? Are they trying to decrease the cost of increasing those revenues? Like what's important to them? So if you get someone like us coming to your office or a customer's location and we have a conversation with them, it's not going to be, here's everything we can do. It's going to be, what are you all trying to do? And let's work together and find those business outcomes. So, you want to hear the voice of the customer. When that phone hangs up a lot of times, that call is, for lack of a better term, that call is dead, right? Well, we're capturing everything that was said on that call. Now we can tell a story like Tacova's, right? Where customers were calling in asking for certain types of boots. They use Dialpad, obviously. And they realized, hey, all of these customers keep calling in asking for a certain type of boot. And now that's their number one seller type of boots that they produce. So that's a business outcome, right? That's a real value to the customer. So we want to have those conversations with the customer on how we can partner together and provide, increased revenues, decreased cost, efficiencies for customers.
So let me ask you a question on the technology side, because it intrigues me. Because
Sure.
when you think about AI and you think about LLM and NLP and the direction it's going in, and kind of the stacking of this full world of integrated kind of advanced thinking. Okay. So when you look at your script data and you guys say I add millions and millions and millions of minutes on an ongoing basis and it's making my platform more intelligent.
Sure.
Okay. Could you explain? It's probably one of the things that I loved about Vincent's strategy and talking about the product side of this with the 12 months of AI.
Yep.
And then wrapping that into a strategy with, okay, in our world, we want you to live in this long term. And coming out of kind of a Google play, there's this generative AI play into it. There's probably an open AI play into it. So how are you going to control those conversations so they live within your environment?
Sure.
How is a client going to get an experience from that transcript data or engagement data? How does your CCAS play into that and become more intelligent to where you're looking at the likes of a Five9s or a NICE or a Genesis and you say, by the way, I think we can surpass them because of our level of data intelligence and the way our platform is built. So maybe you can go a little deeper because it's probably one of the things I liked about Craig's conversation.
Sure.
And listening to Vincent in the past
Yep.
around product.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of to Jeremy's point, right? This isn't new to us. When it comes to things like talk time and our LLM, we do have over 7 billion minutes of talk time, so 13,000 plus calendar years of business communication. I think that's really unique to Dialpad because there's a lot of other companies out there that are just now getting into this. That are talking about having 1 million minutes, 2 million minutes. When it comes to things like WER, like word error rate for recognition on accuracy of transcription, we are talking a astronomical difference, right? And transcription is only as useful as it is accurate. So if you're not getting valid data back from it, it provides no business, outcomes, nothing positive at least, right? A lot of times it can be detrimental to the situation because you're not getting accurate information. With us, we obviously are using natural language processing, machine learning, server side, but a lot of this is kind of based off the base transcription level. And the way that I typically talk about our transcription is a spider, right? The transcription at a surface level is the body of the spider, and all the auxiliary things that came from products like 12 months of AI, right?
Yeah.
AI recaps, AI QA scorecards, AI CSAT, a lot of these additional features are all powered by that, which provides for this really well
Wouldn't
integrated
you say, to me, you could say I got 7 billion minutes, but
Sure.
what are you delivering? Like, what's a story? I think what I took from that is we actually have the data, transcript better than anybody else because we have the majority of the data and we've been building this so long. And now we can help you build out your scripting or your prompting or your engagement strategy with different parts of the business. Because part of this advisor world has got to mature into, with our customers, the ability to go deeper in consulting in the use of the application, the deployment of the application, the applicable way that it can be used to create a different experience. And so what are you seeing out there in the way that you're delivering it to customers, how they're engaging, what that looks like?
Yeah.
To me, that's the real use of it.
Yeah, I think one of the big pieces here is training, right? So frequently now people want to involve AI, but it does require months, for some people years of training the model to get familiar for their business, where we can go in and go, hey, this company is a manufacturing company, or they're FinOps, or they are, a hospital, or whatever the scenario is, and we can pull from just that data set to immediately have kind of actionable insight and data based off of conversations day one when they deploy. I mean, this can actually be done pre-deployment so that we're only looking at that model, that information, and then kind of providing.
So if a client wants to engage with you, you guys can start feeding the engine and start to help them better understand how they could use transcript data and use the platform to tell a story.
Right. Well, and we can choose their vertical, right? So that we're not, when you talk about products like OpenAI or Gemini or whoever it may be, like it's ultimately a large SEO, right? Search engine optimization at a really big level. And the data set that you're pulling from there is it's pretty antiquated. And when we talk about how fast tech moves, B, it just can come from anywhere, right? This could be Wikipedia, it could be Reddit that it's pulling this data from. And with us, we're able to say, hey, like this is manufacturing, we're only looking at manufacturing, and let's provide insight based off of what a manufacturing customer would be looking for example. And I think that's a big piece.
So you can actionably go figure out that data with your environment, target that, and then put that specifically into a strategy with a customer.
Sure.
so that the use of that data is there, so that the language, I mean, in this industry, you have a lot of three-letter acronyms.
That's right.
People don't really know what that means. Oh, hey, what's MPLS mean? Or,
Yeah.
4-letter there, but what's that mean as an acronym? So you're saying in a lot of industries, legal by far has
Sure.
acronyms. So what you're saying is that acronyms within a vertical also play into that AI, and you'll target that as one of the spider web pieces or legs of that spider as a core, so you know what vertical in, you know how you're grabbing the data, so that the language spoken within that vertical is language that they're used to hearing, so it's just not all over the place.
That's correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's smart. I didn't know that.
And then we also do this on like the AI CSAT front, which is one of the products that came 12 months of AI. It's one of my favorite things to show at Dialpad because, like I said, it goes to work day one. If you're in the business of repeat business, right? Customer satisfaction is something that's important to you, as it should be for every single business. We're able to immediately identify like points where a business may need improvement, where their employees are lacking on the support side, the sales side, whatever the scenario may be. And we can identify those, show the calls that this is happening on, why it's happening, we get call level breakdown and explanations. So it's things like that where it can be an instant deploy and these people can start using this day one and getting valuable, actionable data as soon as they start using the platform.
I love it.
So it's what I love about that is adoption is something that's a challenge, right? There's fear of the unknown. People hear AI, they might be anti this, but what you're saying is you guys are able to take the historical information that you gathered over time and develop a plan for an organization that might not know what to do about it.
Sure.
Because the contact center space, I think historically everybody thinks like in a room, agents, right, headsets, phones ringing, right, turning stuff over to support, but it's very different than that, right? Contact center functionality in general is an advantage that a business can take to do that. To that point, you guys were kind of a UCaaS platform that's become more of a contact center player, right?
Sure.
But at the same point in time, you do both, and it's advantageous for a lot of organizations to look that way, and a lot of people want to. But what's been really interesting to see, and even slightly confusing, is how the contact center functionality has been kind of trickling down into the UCaaS seat or license, right? So, which is huge because it's almost like the contact center light for all intents and purposes. But I mean, talk to me a little about how you're seeing that piece of it, right, in the space, how we're able to adopt some of these contact center components and maybe crawl, walk, run into full-blown contact center, right? Or even just be able to take more advantage of the seat count and the licensing that you're paying for that particular user.
Yeah, I mean, something that tends to happen is companies have fragmented solutions, right? Like we're here talking about all the different SaaS opportunities that exist. And a lot of times we say, hey, we have provider X for the UC piece, we have provider Z for the CC piece, and then we have a sales team that's using something different, right?
Right, chatbot here on the website.
Sure. And we're able to kind of bring all that together and provide transparency amongst different business units or parts of the org, which I think is really important. Like some other solutions out there that it's like, hey, we've been running 3 or 4 years with our current environment, and our UC individuals don't know when our CC individuals are on the phone or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Like this is something that's very surface level to us. It seems like it should be a core functionality, right? Now, being able to share data amongst those teams, I think is probably a lot more business impact, right? If I'm working with someone on the base UC side and this is moving to a CC team or something along those lines, and I can share that data with them from previous transactions or interactions, whatever the scenario may be, and kind of do this seamlessly or add them into a conversation that I've been having with the prospect or the customer, for example, and immediately add them in, they can get kind of all the vital or high points of the conversation without having to go listen to, hours of calls. One thing that is entertaining to me is when you get on a bridge these days, right, on video call, and someone's like, hey, XYZ wasn't able to make it. Are you recording this? Like, the real situation is 99% of the time, that person's not going to go back and watch that hour-long call, right? And doing things like having AI recaps, for example, in our Dialpad meetings, or an AI recap for a phone call can go, hey, you missed this. Here's the important stuff. Here's the data. Where do we go from here, for example? So I think that's...
Yeah, the high points. One other question, teams, right? Formidable now at this point.
Sure.
It's widely adopted, now have to be paid for. I mean, what are you guys seeing? Your play in there, how's it happening, right? What are we working towards, right, in terms of further enhancing the team's environment for those organizations that are choosing to go that direction?
Yeah, I mean, we have some Teams integration options. So, kind of as COVID happened, the natural progression for a lot of companies that were already using Teams, or Microsoft in some form or fashion, was to move to a Teams environment as people went remote. And some people really kind of adopted that and went all in on Teams. And they're using that for voice, or they're using it for internal communication and collaboration. There's, kind of to Cato's point earlier, we're not trying to, if they're happy with that solution, we don't necessarily want to step over it and say, hey, like, that's not the right pick for y'all. It may be, but we'll also layer in with it, right? So we can do things like license-free routing or direct routing. So we have both a direct SBC connection to Teams, but it does require that additional licensing, and, Teams itself now requires licensing. But we also have an LFR option that bakes directly into both the UC and CC side, where they can operate directly out of their Teams client, so they can get all that additional feature and functionality that Dialpad has to offer, like transcription, recap data, within their Teams tenant, right? So I think that's kind of the big piece.
So I got a tech-minded person I'm talking to, and they want to know, and they say, I want you to tell me what you love most about this tech that you are going to enjoy in your environment if you choose Dialpad. What is that from a technology standpoint that they click into and say, I like that feature, I like that function, I like where you're going? Because I'll make one comment off of Andrew's. UCAS and CCAS are coming together because a natural progression is a use of transcript data and the interaction coming from a performance or a developmental place, whereas before people would just talk. And today people want to be more effective talking. They're not on the phone as long.
Sure.
How can you be more effective with that? They have call after call after call. What's that engagement look like? So I see both of those coming together. So when somebody says, hey, what is that? How do you see that conversation where it plays into that story of both of those actually creating the Dialpad experience?
Yeah, I'd say I think that's kind of dependent on the part of the business that we're talking to, right? For a general UC users, or a group of UC users, and what would be a traditional department or a hunt group, for example, that like, hey, we have a lot of people answering the phones and data is getting lost in translation. When Jeremy answers and talks to a person, that person calls back and I get them, and they're upset because they're not getting the information, right? We make this apparent or transparent. As soon as I answer the phone, I can see that Jeremy talked to that person this morning, and what they discussed and kind of what the vital points of the conversation was. As we start,
Which, by the way, is still like rare.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. as we start to move into what I would consider more of a cost center for a business, right? Like the contact center.
Yeah.
We are in the nature of turning it into a profit center, right? Like we want business outcomes, we want business productivity, and this may be things like automated QA. If you go and talk to a QA analyst in a large support or contact center type environment, they spend a kind of extraordinary amount of time to go in and audit calls. And a lot of these people are doing this by random selection, right? They've got 100, 200, 500 agents, and they're going in and going, okay, I'm going to pick 10 calls over the last 24 hours, for example, and they may spend 30 minutes on each call. And they hope that they get a good one or a bad one to use as a coaching opportunity, for example. We're able to do these things with real-time sentiment, for example, to identify like, hey, these are the calls you should be paying attention to. And then using tools like AIQA scorecards to automatically go in and grade those calls. If we know what those agents are supposed to be saying or not saying, we can auto pass, auto fail. So things along those lines. And as you get into sales, right, and you have sales leaders like Joe, for example, and he's expecting his agents to, say the right things on a call or do discovery, something like mentioning pricing, right? As they get into contract negotiations, is something needs to be covered on every single call. And we have identified that we've got an agent or an AE, for example, that's not hitting those things. It's very quickly identified and populated within Dialpad, letting you know that like, hey, this person's missing. So kind of the short answer is I think it's dependent on the business unit we're talking to, but there's kind of actionable insight for everyone.
I'll just add a little bit to that too. I think it goes back to the capturing the voice of the customer, right? Somebody's calling in and you can see that they're a current customer. You know, here's the last interaction they had with us. Here's things they're buying from us. Instead of them calling in and you having to figure out what they need, who they are, that just increases the efficiency of that call. Maybe even shortens the call time. You know, give us time to go do something else. So I love that every call that I make, every voicemail that I leave is recapped. I'll call you and leave a voicemail, and I'll get a summary of what I left a voicemail about. So yeah, I'm not going to go back and watch that hour-long video, but I certainly do look at the summary of all my calls, or if I need to go back and search for keywords that we talked about, like which call was that on that we talked about, you know, the Dallas Mavericks, I'll go search that and you can go find it. Or, you know, what are the next steps or the action items from that last call, and they're all bullet pointed right there. So that's powerful.
Okay, we gotta cut this off, but let me ask this one question before we go, okay? Jeremy, what's the biggest thing you see when when an advisor comes in, and that's the same question that I asked a little bit ago, specific to you on the voice or the UCaaS, CCaaS side, what's the number one thing that a client usually comes to the table and says, I want you to help me solve this problem, okay? And it can be a combination of UCaaS, CCaaS, can be one side of it, but what's the biggest thing that we can do to help them solve that problem without you involved to make this process a better experience?
Yeah, I think it goes back to a lot of what you're seeing here. We haven't really touched on this exactly what this means, but a lot of customers have the disparate systems. Everybody needs to have an AI strategy, whether they know what that is or not. Having that built into the platform, obviously, we'll have an AI conversation. But a lot of customers and a lot of places where we're seeing customers move to us is where they have whatever platform they have for voice, and they have, you know, they want to increase sales or they want to increase revenue. So they're looking at maybe doing some of these sales intelligence tools, which these other companies, Gong and Chorus type companies do.
Yeah.
And then everybody, you know, wants to capture the voice of the customer and have some kind of call center. So the fact that we can bring all of these together into one platform, that's really where I'm seeing a lot of movement, a lot of agents talking about it. So as our partnership continues to grow, you guys can help your customers out by saying, hey, we have something that can help your customers, or you, Mr. Customer or Mrs. Customer, that you're looking for, that's going to bring AI together, that's going to not just be a voice, it's going to really increase what you're trying to do to be more productive, to be more efficient, to grow for your company. So looking forward to having those conversations with you guys.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.